Hello and welcome to the Tank Club. We're going to be doing a monster set review today, and this is going to be for the Nazaray monster set. So this monster set is obtained by completing veteran Shipwrights Regret. It's a really nice monster set. Let's take a little look at the set piece bonuses. So for one item, you get 1,206 max health. And for 2 items, when you use an ultimate ability, the closest 6 enemies within 12 meters have all major debuffs and minor debuffs applied to them, extended by 1 second per 20 ultimates spent. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds per target. So how does this work? So what happens is you apply a range of major and minor debuffs to an enemy. You then cast your ultimate while wearing the Nazaray monster set, and the duration of those major and minor debuffs is extended in duration. Now there are a certain number of debuffs that make this very, very valuable. So there are certain debuffs which have short uptimes or can be difficult to obtain from different sources, and by using this we can extend the duration, making it easier to obtain them and also provide your group with a lot more damage. Some of the debuffs that I'm thinking of are things like Minor Brittle, which has quite a short uptime, so being able to extend that for 15-16 seconds is fantastic. Major Vulnerability is another one, which is typically only usually obtained by using the Colossus Ultimate on a Necromancer, but now being able to extend that to over 30 seconds by using the Nazaray monster set is another very good option. So this is an extremely strong monster set for boss fights in the Elder Scrolls Online, especially when you combine it with, like I say, the different buffs and debuffs that you need. So Turning Tide specifically, combined with Nazaray, is an extremely strong option. So when you are extending the debuffs to the enemy, it scales based on how much ultimate you spend. So if you generate your ultimate so that you've got 500 ultimate, and then you use it while you're wearing the Nazaray monster set, you're going to get a huge duration extension on the debuffs that you are applying. It doesn't scale off the ultimate cost. So if you use an ultimate that costs up 250 ultimate, but you've got 500, it's going to be based on the 500 that you physically spend, not the actual cost of the ultimate. The reason this is so strong is because you can progress through a trial or a dungeon. Make sure you're saving up your ultimate during the ad pulls, for example, and then you can build up to your 500 ultimate. Once you reach your boss, you proc Turning Tide or Major Vulnerability, you can apply your Minor Maim, you can apply your Taunt, you can apply Brittle, you can apply everything that you can in those short couple of seconds. Then you use a 500 ultimate Warhorn typically, and that's going to increase the duration of all of those things. You can get a 35-second Major Vulnerability on a boss, which means that your group is going to do a ton of damage. Now this set is not a useful set for ad pulls. There are no real ad pulls in the game that take so long that it requires using a set that's going to extend debuffs. So if you are going to do dungeon content, using the Nazaray monster set for dungeons is not advised. It's not worth it. You would be better off wearing something else, or maybe even running an ulti gaining monster set so that by the time you get to a boss, when you do use your ultimate and you wear in Nazaray, you're going to get a huge boost. So it's only really worth it for boss fights. Another thing to think about is in trial content, if you're in an organised group, using Nazaray on ad pulls again is not useful because those ad pulls die in 5 to 10 seconds. So extending the duration of Major Vulnerability on an ad pull to 30 seconds isn't worth it because it doesn't take 30 seconds to kill an ad pull. Even in your sort of mid-level groups, they're not going to take 30 seconds to kill an ad pull. So Nazaray generally is not worth it for ad pulls in any content. But it is very, very valuable once you hit a boss fight. If you combine this set with something like Turning Tide or the Necro Ultimate and all your other debuffs, and you are kind of able to generate your ultimate really fast, by using Nazaray, you're able to maintain virtually 100% Major Vulnerability on a boss. So if you use Turning Tide, you can proc Turning Tide. If you time everything correctly, you can then time it, you can then proc your Nazaray at certain stages, and you're able to extend the duration. And if you've got a really, really good way at building ultimate fast, you can almost maintain that 100% major vulnerability by combining the timing of your turning tide with your Nazaray, with your horn, to get that huge major vulnerability uptime. Now, this doesn't work well in a situation where you may be a Necromancer tank and you're using the Colossus ultimate. When you use a Colossus on an enemy, it doesn't immediately apply the major vulnerability. So don't use this with a Colossus ultimate. If you're going to use this, you need to use it with a Warhorn, because if you are applying major vulnerability via the Colossus ultimate from the Necromancer, personally, there's a delay on when it applies the debuff. So you will not get an extension of the duration, because Nazaray will extend things that are applied to the boss already, not stuff you're applying with your ultimate. So if you are using the Colossus ultimate to proc your Nazaray, that's not going to extend the duration of major vulnerability. So that is not something that I advise you do. If you have somebody else who uses a Colossus, let them use the Colossus. Once they've done that, then you use your ultimate. That will then extend the duration of the major vulnerability. So this is a good monster set generally for main tanks. This is more or less a main tank monster set in quite a few situations, because it gives you much more easy access to things like being able to time when you use your ultimate, when you use your turning tide, to be able to get those huge uptimes. There are sometimes situations where it would be better on other roles. So the off tank may sometimes use this where they're moving out a group for different phases and mechanics, because they can cast their ultimate, then they can leave the group, they can leave the area, and that means that they're going to extend the duration. You have got to remember that this has got a 30-second target cooldown. So if you are applying this to a target, if you've any multiple people wearing Nazaray, you've got to make sure you're separating their ultimates by 30 seconds, because it's not going to work. You're not able to extend the duration of any debuffs if you're casting it too soon. So there's a 30-second target cooldown. So when you're using it on a boss cannot be inflicted with the extended duration from Nazaray sooner than once every 30 seconds. That is something to think about. I've already done a video about this, and the Cloud Rest trial situation where people are asking tanks to wear 2 Nazarays doesn't make sense. Go and check that out. If you need more information, that'll be found on my YouTube channel as well. Sometimes a healer may use this as well. Like I say, it depends on how you're setting up and what the trial situation is. So that is just something you've got to think about. So this monster set is good for dungeons, it's good for trials, it's good for arenas. Anywhere where you're going to be a tank, this is useful on any boss fight. Pretty much any boss fight, you just have to quickly apply as many debuffs as you can. Most notably, minor brittle and major vulnerability. Apply this, huge buff. So I am going to rate this monster set based on how useful it is. So as I mentioned, it's not very good for ad pulls. You could use it if you're in a really low DPS group. You could do. But typically, this is a boss monster set. It's a monster set you're only really going to use for boss fights, but it has a huge impact on extending those durations of debuffs. It makes your life easier in regards to maintaining debuffs, because you can apply stuff, extend it, and there you go. It does require a bit of timing, so that can be sometimes a little bit of a downfall if you struggle to time things, especially when working alongside group members. But overall, I'm going to rate this gear set a 4.5 out of 5. It's good for all content, all situations, for every tank. So it's a very worthwhile monster set. It's definitely worth investing the time to pick this up, get it in the right trait, get it enchanted, get it sorted out, because this is extremely good. So that is everything for this monster set review. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.